Let's get straight to our panelists now. And from Washington, I'm joined by writer and political commentator Anushay Hossain, and also from Washington, Republican strategist and president of the Hispanic Leadership Council, Ivan Garcia-Hidalgo. Thanks both so much for joining us. Let me begin with Ivan. Would a government shutdown over funding the wall hurt U.S. security?
I don't think so, because when you shut down the government, security forces, Army, law enforcement, they're all intact. They're all stay in place. Other areas of the government are the ones shut down. So I don't think that's an issue at all. The border wall is a critical part of our security, and I think it's the right move what the president's doing. We have to include funding for the wall in this budget.
Okay. Anushay, are you on the same page?
No, I actually completely disagree. And, you know, the U.S. security is definitely affected by this government shutdown. In fact, some of the most high-profile agencies, U.S. government agencies that would be affected include Homeland Security and the Department of Defense, not to mention the TSA agents and the border security agents during a very busy holiday period. And I think, once again, what we are seeing is just unnecessary Trump political drama and theater that has way more to do with his own ego than the security and well-being of Americans.
Okay, and Ivan, I mean, Senator Chuck Schumer called it drama, as Anushay was saying, but he phrased it as a temper tantrum that Trump is actually throwing, and says Trump is actually using innocent government workers as hostages. Is that fair?
No, I mean, Trump, you know, Senator Schumer is probably the ideal definition of what a hypocrite is, right? Because you go back and you look at archives of his videos and speeches where he has himself had very strong positions on immigration, on border security, on building a wall, actually, and even voted for funding that. So it's very hypocritical. The left and the Democrats continue to play with the Hispanic voters and minorities across the country with fake news and false statements. And they have really no interest in finding any kind of solution to any of America's serious problems like immigration. And we see that right now. You know, the statement of the other guests saying that Homeland Security and DOD, yes, you know, obviously every agency is going to have some cuts, but not on the law enforcement capabilities, and not in a way that's going to affect our security. But, you know, when we look at the situation right now, this is very, very easy. We could get a DACA, we could get TPS, we could get comprehensive immigration reform done if all we do is fund the wall. But no, the Democrats don't want to do that. They continue to play games, and it's going to hurt them at the end. I mean, personally, I think what's probably going to happen is probably a CR, a 2-week CR is going to get passed, and we're going to kick the can to January and see what happens. But you know, I have no issues with the president taking a hardline position like he's doing right now. I think Democrats need to understand that this is about national security. It's not about them getting more voters into the voter rolls. Okay,
Anushay, I'll let you respond quickly before I need to move on to something with Ivan. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. The number one priority and the job of lawmakers and the precedent is to keep the government open. And I think it's so selfish and detached from the larger public to be like, oh, it doesn't really matter. And I agree with the president, because so many government workers will not be paid over the holiday season. And that includes the Secret Service, who will be protecting and going along with the president when he takes his trip to Mar-a-Lago for a little over 2 weeks. That trip is still planned. So I think it's hilarious that people are like, oh, the government shutdown doesn't matter. And Trump is definitely throwing a temper tantrum over his border wall when he's still planning on going and vacationing in his exclusive club in Florida with Secret Service agents that may not even get paid because of his shutdown.
Ivan, I mean,
Secret Service does get paid, by the way.
So sorry, Ivan. I mean, is it not a fair point to say that it won't be fair for these government workers to not get their paychecks?
Well, they all get paid. Whenever there's been a shutdown and whenever a budget gets passed,
they do
everybody
not
gets
all
paid
get paid. That's not correct.
So it's
that's
the same
not
thing.
correct.
You know, so, you know, Democrats
no,
screaming and yelling. If they really care about the worker, if they really care about the American worker, they'd sit there and pass legislation that would promote jobs and get people off of the government payrolls. That's reality. I mean, the Democrat and the left strategy is put everybody on welfare or have them work for the government, and you know, we'll solve the problem. And it doesn't work that way. That's not how America works. It's not how it's ever worked.
Is this supposed to be an actual
and it's not the way it's going to work
debate?
in the future. We need to secure our border. We need to make sure that we can protect our sovereign nation, our citizens.
Okay.
Ramble on, please.
And make people go through a process that's legitimate and real.
All right, Mr. Garcia-Hidalgo, I'm going to have to go back to...
You know what the funny thing is, Andrea? A lot of this is that...
Go ahead, Anushay. Finish quickly.
Sorry, continue.
Okay,
I was just going to say that a lot of people, a lot of lawmakers are trying to sell this to the public.
Okay.
No, continue.
No, I do need to get back to a core point, because this was a pillar of Donald Trump's campaign. Kept talking about building the wall. But just as importantly, he kept repeating that Mexico was going to pay for it. Now we're threatening a government shutdown because Congress isn't including U.S. funding, $5 billion worth, to build this wall. Yvonne, what happened to Mexico paying this bill?
Well, I said it from the beginning. It was I said it during the campaign before the president was elected, when people questioned that, and I said the simple answer: it's semantics, right? Because at the end, we're going to renegotiate NAFTA. We're going to correct tens of billions of dollars in trade deficit, and that'll be able to cover a brand new wall every single year for for perpetuity.
But that's
that's
payment
reality.
from Mexico.
And Nancy Pelosi has actually said that it's not fair for that surplus in the new trade agreement in the USMCA to go towards the wall and not the American people. Trump negotiated this. He created this situation. He's saving us tens of billions of dollars on a trade surplus. That covers the wall. All it takes is one year, cover it, and end the story. Then the surplus continues to come to the American people and the economy every single year. Perpetuity.
Okay, but one problem is that agreement, the USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, hasn't been ratified, and a number of economists have said that the kind of revenue that it would generate still wouldn't cover the kind of costs of this wall. I know studies you're reading may say otherwise, but I mean, Anushay, is it fair to use the proceeds from whatever new trade agreement is drafted to cover the cost?
Well, the funny thing is, and you're just like you said, Mexico was never going to pay for this wall. Mexico is never going to pay for this wall. They have said themselves that they are not going to pay for this wall. The current Mexican president has said this, and former Mexican presidents have said this. Like many things that Donald Trump promises, it's a scam. It is not real, and there is no funding for this wall, and lawmakers do not think that it's a priority to, it has nothing to do with our border security. They're making up, Stephen Miller was on the Sunday talk shows making the rounds, saying that the government will absolutely shut down over funding for the border wall. And everybody knows that the U.S. government is just making up these stories, this Trump administration, about the onslaught of caravans full of migrants. But everybody knows that it's not a priority. And everything they're saying is actually the fake news they accuse the other side of.
Right.
But ever since the midterms passed, Andrea, we have not heard about where did the caravan go? Where did this caravan full of pregnant women and sick immigrants go?
It doesn't exist.
This is such a joke, and it's once again cheap.
There are
Trump
criminal element in there.
theater,
There are terrorists.
the cost of real
there are
American
MS-13
lives.
gang members. But that doesn't exist. That didn't happen.
I love how talk of this caravan
Democrats
just disappeared after the Republicans
Democrats
got
live
their
in this
heads
fantasy
handed to
land
them over
where
the
they
midterms.
think they can sit there and tell the American
I really wish I could live in the world where you live in, which is completely delusional,
none of
not
this
full
works
of
and none of
facts,
this is
alternate
real.
reality.
And they're going to continue to play with the Hispanic vote.
If Trump
That's
really cares, he would
reality.
cancel
What
his
they're
trip to
looking for is
Mar-a-Lago.
adding,
Let me
they're
turn.
looking to add more
If
voters
you can, you are
to
not
their
living in
voter rolls.
reality.
I have
can't
to
even
turn
have
to,
a debate with you because this is a joke.
Okay, let me ask a separate question here then.
Same as your policies and your positions.
Yvonne, let me ask you. Trump has argued that he actually has the votes, though, in Congress to pass the funding. We saw Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer come back and say, no, you don't. You just don't have the numbers. Where are you coming up with this? So tell me where you stand. Are the numbers there in Congress for Trump to get his funding for this wall passed?
Yes and no. So we have the votes in the House. We don't have the votes in the Senate. In the Senate, we need 60 votes. So we need 10 Democrats, and that's not going to happen. So in reality, there's no point in passing this through the House to have it just sit there in the Senate and get voted down, which is what Pelosi was suggesting.
Didn't the Democrats
right?
just win control over the House? Wait, they have
do we have the votes? No,
in
we
the
don't
House?
have the votes.
So you're saying you have the votes now until the new Congress steps in, and then the numbers definitely won't be there. So explain how this works kind of logistically. If you do shut down the government, and this bill does not get passed with the funding for the wall, the new members of Congress take over in January. Then where do things stand? Will another government shutdown be threatened, or will Trump just the president just have to accept that he's not going to get that funding from U.S. Congress?
I don't know where this is going to go. I mean, I personally think they're going to pass a CR, a continuing resolution today, and kick it out 2 weeks, and then have the new Congress come in and work with the new Congress to try and get some kind of agreement. I don't think either side realistically wants a shutdown. Rhetoric aside, I don't think the president is looking to shut down government and keep it shut down forever. You know, everybody's playing politics. Schumer did it last time with DACA, and it's been done numerous times throughout previous administrations, so it's nothing new. It's a negotiating tactic that both sides uses. What's going to be the outcome? I think they're going to have to find themselves somewhere in the middle. Right now, the Democrats are offering $1.6 billion, but not for any wall construction. He wants $5 billion for the wall. I think they're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle that includes wall and security. You know, that isn't physical, right? Like electronic or drone or whatever.
But isn't it so funny, Andrea, that, wait, I thought Mexico was supposed to pay for this wall, but he's holding the U.S. government hostage over his border wall funding, which just proves my point that this is all a farce. And in fact, a lot of people are labeling this as shutdown light, because through the appropriations process, 75% of the U.S. Government is already funded through 2019. So it would only be certain agencies that are going to be affected. But the point is that Homeland Security, TSA agents, border security agents, Trump is trying to pin this as, like he does with everything else, and making this about national security and about the security of the country. But really, it's about his ego, because he's not going to cancel his trip to Mar-a-Lago. His Secret Service agents are not going to be paid. This is the holiday season. It's Christmas time. Everybody should be paid. Nobody should be wondering where their paycheck is going to be coming from. And the job of the president and the U.S. government is to make sure that the government keeps running. A shutdown is never okay or acceptable, no matter how partial it is.
Okay, Anushay, though, quickly, if you can comment on what...
But when Democrats shut it down, it's okay, right? But Democrats have shut down the government plenty of times. It is never an issue.
No.
Right? Because they're doing
Democrats
the right thing.
are not in power.
See, that's the hypocrisy of the left.
The Democrats are not in power.
The hypocrisy of the left is they believe.
It's a Republican Senate.
The hypocrisy of the left is they believe they are the sole owners of the truth.
Personal.
And they are the...
You know,
I'll tell you what, let's not make it
Republicans
personal.
controlling the
Anushay, I
House,
just want
the Senate, and the
Anushay,
White House.
Chaos, misery, and corruption.
I'd like to see,
That is the
Anushay,
reality of the left.
if you at least agree
Okay.
on Yvonne's vision for where this is
so
ultimately going. He was saying that somehow both parties will have to meet somewhere in the middle on this funding deal. Do you agree?
I agree in a normal, realistic world, but in Trump's world and Trump's America, as we are seeing with this total made-up political drama that he is creating, everything comes down to this president's ego. And your other guest just went from saying Mexico's going to pay for it to we should pay for it, and it's okay to shut down the government over it? I mean, I don't even understand. I don't even understand people who speak on behalf of this president.
Okay, Anushay, actually, I'm going to give you...
Well, I just explained it to you, so if you need me to explain it again, I'll be happy to if you don't understand, but it's going to come from the surplus. I don't need you to say anything unless it involves at least one fact. On the trade
deal.
Have you
uttered one fact?
You know, if you don't understand that, there's plenty of documentation out there to help you understand.
Unfortunately, we don't have time for any further explanations. Actually, we are completely out of time for this segment of the Newsmakers. So I'd like to thank you both so much for joining us from Washington.